Don't make the mistake of buying cheap, low-cash rental properties in the Midwest like Indiana, or you're gonna lose everything. At least that's what I hear repeated by tons of investors like David Greene.
When you buy in these cheaper markets, the $150,000 houses, it's not that they don't appreciate, it's that the rent also doesn't go up. And everybody here who bought into turnkey properties, owns in the Midwest, I'm getting a hallelujah amen out of them, and they're all saying, I wish somebody would have told me this.
They barely cash flow, you're gonna get crumbs for profits.
Because the assumption with real estate is that rents are gonna go up every year, but your mortgage is gonna stay the same. But that doesn't happen in every market. Some of the areas like Detroit, Indiana, the Midwest in general, the rents may go up, but it's very small. It could be like 10, 15, 20 bucks a year.
They won't appreciate at the same rates as other markets.
What I would look at is the value of the properties I'm buying. What is the game plan here? What's the play? I think people do better over the long term investing in areas that both appreciate in price and cash flow.
Now, these gurus and the collective expertise of the internet love to give opinions on investing in cheap, out-of-state rental properties. But have they actually done it? Now, they're going to tell you definitely don't buy real estate in places like Indiana. Instead, focus on higher appreciating markets. Or my personal favorite, doesn't one repair wipe out all your cash flow for the entire year? But are they right? Is it really that hard to be profitable? Is the grass really greener on the other side? Is the Midwest just devoid of potential and a lost cause money pit where rookie investors are all but guaranteed to learn a very hard lesson and lose all of their money? I'm going to present my case to you, and you be the jury. Now, how's it going, guys? If you're wondering whether or not investing in cheap rental properties in the Midwest is worth it, then you're in the right place. My name is Mike, and I own 13 units, 11 of which are in Gary, Indiana. Yes, that Gary, Indiana.
Once named the Magic City, Gary, Indiana is almost completely abandoned. With over 13,000 buildings left to rot, 1993 Gary was named Murder Capital of the U.S.
It's America's most miserable city. So how do I do it? How am I beating the odds and crushing my cash flow goals? Well, I've been investing in real estate since 2018 and in Gary since 2020. And when someone first suggested to me that I invest in Gary, Indiana, I said, hell no. A quick Google search in 3 minutes of looking at pictures, and Gary looks more like an active war zone than a city. It appears that the only thing that can do more damage to a city's infrastructure than dropping a nuclear bomb is deindustrialization, which Gary, as part of the Rust Belt, was a prime victim of when the U.S. Steel Corporation started shipping jobs overseas. Gary, Indiana, or as I affectionately love to call it, Gotham City, once had a population of 200,000 people, but that's fallen all the way down to 67,000. The city looks like a ghost town. Now, Gary has 3 times the national poverty rate, 3 times the national crime rate, and 1/3 of all buildings in the city are abandoned. So who in their right mind would ever invest in a failing city like this? Or let's take it one step further and extrapolate that same argument out to other similar areas like Birmingham, Alabama, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Detroit, Michigan, or as David Greene said earlier, the whole Midwest.
Some of the areas like Detroit, Indiana, the Midwest in general.
Let's look at the arguments against it, and let's start with all of the basic talking points we've all heard many times before. Number 1, all of the rentals in a place like Gary produce such a small amount of cash flow, it just isn't worth an investor's time and effort. Number 2, Gary, Indiana is so depressed that any real estate you buy will likely not appreciate or will appreciate very little, especially when compared to better markets. Number 3, the quality of the tenant you're going to get there is terrible, and you're going to have countless headaches and issues. Number 4, crime is sky high, and if you wouldn't want to live there, why would you want to invest there? Number 5, you must be a slumlord. That's the only way that you're making it work in a city or a market like Gary. Now look, the first 2 points of contention really boil down to just money and math. Is it a good investment or not? So let's take a look at my portfolio, and I'm going to show you the real numbers on my properties and my cash flow, and then you decide for yourself if you think that I'm making money or just making noise. So number 1, again, all of the rentals in a place like Gary produce such a small amount of cash flow, it just isn't worth an investor's time or effort. Now, if you go back on my YouTube channel, I've documented every single rental property that I've purchased, what the price was, what the rent was when I purchased it, and what my projected cash flow was. I've said many times before that what I aim for is a $250 profit a month in cash flow after all expenses. Now, here's how I calculate that profit. I take my rent and I subtract 30% right off the top immediately. 10% for a property manager, 20% for vacancies and maintenance, and then I subtract the pie tie, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Whatever amount I have left over after all of that is the profit. And again, I'm looking for $250. I bought this 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in 2020 for $52,500. At the time, it rented for $900 a month, but in the last 3 years, it's gone up to $1,000 a month in rent. My mortgage payment was $370 a month, but because insurance and taxes have gone up slightly, the new payment is $400 a month. So we take that $1,000 a month it's renting for now, minus 10%, $100 to the property manager, minus 20%, $200 for vacancies and maintenance. That leaves me with $700 remaining. $700 minus the pie tie of $400 means that I have a profit of $300 a month in positive cash flow. $300 a month times 12 is $3,600 a year. Now let me put it into perspective for you before you sit there and say, Mike, $3,600 really isn't that much money. Don't forget what I paid for this rental. I put 20% down on the house, which was $10,500. I paid about $2,000 in closing costs. It only cost me $12,500 to buy this house, and that bought me $3,600 a year in profit. Now, right now, based on my calculations, I'm making a 28% cash-on-cash return on my original $12,500 investment. Compare that to your overpriced Seattle area duplex. But Mike, $3,600, that's one water heater, that's one furnace, that's one eviction away from losing all of your profit for the entire year. It's still not worth it. And this is where I think people miss the mark with cheap, low cash flow rental properties. If you didn't do your underwriting properly, and if you didn't allocate the proper amount of funds for vacancies and maintenance and repairs, then you would be correct. You'd have no profit left over. However, remember back to the numbers I just ran by you. I set aside 20% of total rents for all repairs, maintenance, and vacancies. So on this property, that's $200 a month. 200 times 12 is $2,400 a year. And that $2,400 a year is just sitting in a vacancies and maintenance account that I still own, waiting to be used for vacancies and maintenance. That means that I can pay up to $2,400 a year without affecting my bottom line or the profit, and I'll still maintain the exact same margin. And so far, I've never had to spend that much money to repair a property other than major pre-planned remodels that I knew I was going to do before buying the project. Now, many times I've read the online comments suggesting that a high repair cost is one of the things that bleeds these cheap, cash-flowing rental properties dry, and it makes them unprofitable. Now, here are the two solutions that I've utilized to avoid this successfully. First, buy a turnkey property from either a turnkey provider or directly off the MLS. A newly remodeled home, that way you'll have no major repairs coming in the near future. Newer roofs, water heaters, furnaces, all of that stuff matters. So make sure that you get the property inspected. Get the freaking sewers scoped. Set yourself up for success. Or, second, the more advanced option is to buy a fixer-upper and then fix it up. Plan for all the repairs. Get it into newly remodeled condition yourself. I've done 2 of these projects and I'm currently working on my 3rd right now. I utilize the burst strategy to get all of my money back to me and then still have a cash flowing rental property on the back end. Now, if you want to watch a video highlighting that project, check the one out right here. But remember, this is a more advanced strategy and I really don't recommend that you start with this type of project. Go with a turnkey rental and get an easy win on the board to start. Now, I just explained how I forced appreciation with the burst strategy project, but what about regular old non-forced, completely consensual appreciation? It is true when people say that these Midwest rentals don't go up in value at the same rate California, Seattle, Miami, or Phoenix, Arizona does. The duplex that I own right here in the Seattle area went from $450,000 in 2018 and now appraises for $700,000 less than 5 years later. And if you don't believe the estimate, I had it appraised for the purposes of a HELOC in 2022, and it appraised for $700,000. Now that means that I stacked at a minimum $250,000 in equity in less than a 4-year period. That's not going to happen in Gary, Indiana. You're never going to realize that type of equity growth. Or in most Midwest markets, honestly. They're completely right. That type of equity growth allows you to do amazing things if you use a HELOC or a cash out refinance wisely. Now, I've never said that I'm against these type of rental properties, just that I'm for cheap, strong cash-on-cash return rentals in the Midwest. But let's take a quick look at the appreciation of my rentals. For those out there who say there is none, allow me to disagree. Now, obviously, I'm not going to pay thousands of dollars to get third-party appraisals done for the sake of this video, but I'm going to give you my purchase price and then the Z estimate. And I know, I hear you. Zillow estimates are terrible. They're usually wrong. I get it. However, after 4 years of looking at the Gary, Indiana real estate market, I've gotten quite good at assessing values by not only purchasing my own units, but by helping several other investors get started and purchase their units. Essentially, you're going to just have to trust me on this one. I'm not going to sell a property or pay for an appraisal just to prove you wrong in a 15-minute YouTube video. Now, I bought this house in 2020 for $60,000. Zillow has it estimated at $73,900. That's a $13,900 increase and over 20% appreciation in 3 years. I bought this house in 2020 for $52,500, and Zillow has it estimated at $77,100. That's a $25,000 increase and nearly 50% appreciation in 3 years. I bought this house in 2020 for $34,000, and Zillow has it estimated at $45,000. Now, personally, I think that's a little bit low, but still, that's an $11,000 increase and around a 30% appreciation in 3 years. I bought this duplex in 2021 for $79,000. Zillow has it estimated at $87,000. But you might notice that Zillow thinks this is a single-family home. It's not. It's a duplex. Do you think that might affect the value slightly? I believe it's probably a little closer to $120,000 on the conservative side, but my feelings aside, that's still an $8,000 bump in 2 years and 10% appreciation. I bought this house in November of 2021 for $69,000. Zillow estimates it now at $77,000. That's $7,000 in less than 2 years, and again, 10% appreciation. The other properties that I purchased were Burr Strategy projects purchased within the last 12 months and really haven't had enough time to naturally appreciate. Although, again, I did force appreciation with these projects big time. So, recap, minimum of 10% appreciation in 2 years and upwards of 50% appreciation in some cases. That doesn't suck. I agree when you apply the percentage increase to the value of the property, it's not nearly the same to pick up $20,000 on a Gary rental versus $200,000 on a Seattle duplex. But I'm not losing money. I'm making money. And I didn't buy any of these properties with appreciation as the goal. I bought them for cash flow, as I explained earlier and pointed the numbers out earlier. Lastly, I'll give you one more thing to consider. You can't argue with the fact that if you're a new, aspiring investor who didn't grow up wealthy, who doesn't have a lot of money to invest, who doesn't have a job that throws off extra play cash to save vast swaths of dinero like it's just no big deal, 20% down on a $60,000 house is way easier to save than 20% down on a $600,000 house. If you're going to learn that being a real estate investor is not for you, a $60,000 mistake is much more ideal than a $600,000 mistake. And if you buy and the next day the market drops 10%, a $6,000 loss sucks way less than a $60,000 loss. Just some things to think about. Now, back to my original list, continuing on with the final 3 points. Number 3, the quality of the tenants you will get there is terrible, and you're going to have countless headaches and issues. Now, finding and selecting good tenants is an art and a skill in any market. It's especially important in markets like Gary, Indiana, where yes, there are more difficult, problematic tenants than what you would find in a high-end market like the rich Seattle suburbs. Partnering with a great property manager who has a track record of selecting good tenants is a must. I highly recommend going with a majority of your rentals on the Section 8 program. There's many misconceptions about the Section 8 program. I should probably do a full video on that, debunking it. But in a nutshell, it's guaranteed money from the government. Your biggest concern as an investor will always be, are they going to pay? Your spreadsheet doesn't mean jack if they don't pay rent. Section 8, always pays. Section 8 also runs their own criminal background check and doesn't allow felons in the program. If a tenant is removed from Section 8, they're out of the program for 5 years, which means the tenant is highly incentivized to behave well. And the average amount of time that a Section 8 tenant stays before moving is longer than 7 years. That means very limited turnover and more money for your bottom line. I truly believe that partnering with Section 8 and other government assistance programs for renters is key for cheap cash flowing rentals like the ones that I buy in Gary, Indiana. All right, number 4, crime is sky high, and if you wouldn't live there, why are you investing there? Now look, this isn't true about the entire Midwest, but it is true about many cities, including Gary, especially Gary. Yes, crime is high. I've purchased properties and inherited tenants who ended up on house arrest. Or I had a Burr Project house that I bought that had a stolen car in the garage. Yeah, that happened. But again, not every person living in the city is a criminal. This is again why it's so important to partner with a great property manager who prioritizes background checks if you aren't going the Section 8 route. That's what I recommend. Now remember, if you don't like the neighborhood, you aren't living there. Don't get emotional, stay logical. Will a qualified tenant pay the price that you need to rent this property out, allowing you to operate it and make a profit? Yes or no? The answer is yes. Then even if you wouldn't want to live in that neighborhood or municipality, they're making the choice to live there and you're providing them with a service. And you can take pride in providing them with better housing than some slumlord would, which moves us on to the last point. Point number 5. Lastly, you must be a slumlord if you're making it work in Gary. Yes, it's funny to make jokes, but yeah, everybody, yep, okay, bag on Gary, everybody, yes, I know they're dirty, cheap, gross rentals, I get it, I hear it to no end, but no, I'm not a slumlord. But I certainly do love slumlords, and before all the woke socialism-loving keyboard warriors, who probably aren't watching in all honesty, have a stroke, I don't love slumlords because I want to be one, or because I want to defend them. Absolutely not. I think they should be prosecuted, in my opinion. I love buying from them. Oftentimes you get very cheap rental properties because they've under-repaired and they've mismanaged the property. So it creates an opportunity to buy an ugly property that less people want, therefore you have less competition. Then you can swoop in, remodel it, get the rents up to market value, and have a great performing asset. One of the best tricks to getting good tenants in a city like Gary, Indiana, is to have the nice properties. Then you get to pick from the nice tenants. The difficult ones avoid your property because they know they're not going to qualify anyways. Nice properties pass Section 8 inspections. Pieces of garbage don't. Now, I'm not here to convince you to invest in cheap Midwest rental properties. Do what you want to do. You're an adult. I'm just here to explain why some people, like me, get a little heartburn when we're laughed at or called idiots for investing in the Midwest or in a city like Gotham. Now, I made my decision to invest here, and I stand by it. And guess what? I'm not alone. This is my buddy Darius. He has 3 rentals, and he's investing from Seattle. He bought his first one last year. This is my friend Rich. He's got 9 rental properties, 6 of them in Northwest Indiana, and he's been investing since 2020 while living out of state. Here's my friend Caleb, 19 doors in Gary. 9 were turnkey properties, 10 were project remodels. He's been in the market since 2020, and he invests from Florida. And here's my friend Maskey with 25 rental properties. Tons of them were turnkey. Tons of them were project remodels. He's been investing since 2019 and also lives in Florida. Now, these are just a few of my friends from the group chat who are willing to be featured in a YouTube video, but there are many other successful investors that I know investing in Gary. Now, I'll leave you with some words of wisdom that I'm fond of recounting. In every real estate market in the country, there are people who are investing successfully, and there are people who are not investing successfully. Find the ones who are doing it right, learn from them, and copy their strategies. Do you really think that in a city with 67,000 people, in a county with 500,000 people, within a 40-minute drive of Chicago, which boasts a population of 2.6 million people, you really think that there's 0 successful real estate investors there? There wasn't going to be a single person who figured out the Gary game, learned the rules, mastered the fundamentals, and is currently dunking on all of the haters and establishing himself as the king of Gary? I don't want to just be Millennial Mike. I want to be the Michael Jordan of Northwest Indiana real estate. And if I lose, good. If I do a bad deal, great. If somebody says that I suck at real estate investing and made bad choices, fan-freaking-tastic. If I fail along the way, wonderful. Because all of those things are just opportunities for me to get better, which is why I win and why I continue to win. because I don't believe in giving up. I never back down. I never surrender. I refuse to be a quitter. I only listen to the haters and their noise for entertainment. So like the video, sub to the channel, and follow me if you want to watch somebody win.